Okay, it's now time for making a kind of summary or preliminary conclusions for this two-day workshop. And we have invited yes, and Lars to join the panel. And the other three of us has been discussing what should be the summary, and we don't quite agree, but then we decided that we could also discuss our different points of view and of course also invite you in. And the feedback we get from you on the purpose of the workshop, and if we have if you have reached what we aimed at, that would also be very valuable. Maybe I should start. For me, some of the conclusions are that we need more networking. The workshop results were very good. I think we should pursue that and try to have more meetings between first responders and sensory impairment organizations. And I think there is a willingness on both sides to have more meetings. Another point that I think is important is that in my country and in many other countries, I think that there's no local planning. There is a local planning based on equipment and logistics, but not for the psychosocial care. And that could be an issue that we could raise in our countries. I also think that a very good work issue for all of this could be to study the training for the first responders, for the social workers, for psychologists and doctors, and to see which part do sensory impairment and crisis management, which part do they play in the curriculum. I think that maybe it's not very large, and then we could discuss that with the people who are responsible for training and the curricula. A point I took from Talia was about caregiver care, that should be a part of any disaster plan. I've been involved in the Danish national disaster plans, and as far as I remember, this was never discussed or a part of it. There's also a point about annual training that I think is important to have some kind of on-the-job training, and it's done on a national level within the railway system, within the airport, in other fields. And I think that we could sort of approach these authorities and then suggest to them that they build in a more comprehensive part about disabilities and sensory impairment, and also about prolonging them to take care of the victims for a longer period instead of just having a 4-hour exercise. And I think that is also some very nice and exciting material that has been presented here that could be translated or used in many other countries, and I think that the group should discuss this. So the last point is that on-the-job training, I think, is something that are used in fire brigades and among police from time to time. And in addition to that, maybe we could also think about communicating problems and how they were solved and how they were not solved so well in other countries, because the number of disasters we have in Denmark is not so high, but we could still learn from problems that people have been fighting with in other countries. So that could be part of making the world a little bit larger and make the first responders more flexible. Yes. Claudia?
Yeah, okay, I can continue. So I would like to continue with the point we discussed outside controversy, so Trond can add it after, because I thought when I was observing our discussion the last 2 days and also during the workshop in Germany, just to come back to our starting point, we wanted to do a project firstly on psychosocial crisis management for people with hearing and visual impairment. And we were talking about a lot of different things and discussing a lot of different topics during our workshop and our conference now. We were talking about, very important about awareness, really to be aware of the needs of people, really to be aware how we can communicate and whatever. But we were also talking a lot about alarm systems, which are missing. We don't have, for example, in Germany, in other countries it's better, we have learned during these 2 days. But in Germany we don't have quite well alarm systems, especially for deaf people. So we were talking about a lack of education. So we have to include the topic in the training of uniformed services, of psychosocial acute helper, but also police officers, doctors, emergency doctors, and so on. Social workers are often more trained in this topic than other professionals. So we were talking about that. We were talking about how to prepare shelters in a way so that people with hearing and visual impairment can move mostly independent in the shelters and how they can stay there in a better way. We were talking about how to prepare official buildings better so that people are not hurted in these buildings. So you see, in my opinion, we were discussing a lot of topics which are not original our psychosocial topics. So, and it's very interesting that we have to include all this stuff because, of course, it is also psychosocial because we need to prepare the surrounding to be safer and to be more. I don't know in English. It's more visionable or more to control in a better way. So. But it's interesting. So, in my opinion, we have to do a lot of work in the future, in the next year, during our project, but also later, in the years after, also to work on a political basis, to make a lot of different organizations, the government, more aware about the different needs and what is necessary to do in the whole crisis management, in the general crisis management. This was my opinion, and I hope we can work on that and we can inform, so really to inform our educational organizations for uniformed services, for example, to inform the government, to inform the crisis staffs and so on, what they have to be aware of and what they have to prepare. So, but we had a little controversial discussion about that topic outside. Maybe, Trond, you want to add your point?
You had to switch it on, sorry. I do not disagree. I think we should not think that we are most important in preparedness, but we have the mental health perspective, and I think we should always bring that out, that we know something about what's important for people when they feel safe. I think that's the way of thinking that we are building resilience is a very important point, and building in resilience, then it's very important about feeling of safety, knowing what to do, information about what to do in emergency situations, how the alarm systems works. Such things are very important, and we shouldn't have the solution of which type of alarm system, but we should bring out that having alarm systems for different groups are needed. So I think our project is more than just aftercare. It's about the whole line from preparedness to what we are doing when something happens. And for the case that's something really should happen, the best way of building, having good psychosocial support is to have high resilience before the happening.
Svenja, okay. You want to comment statements and to add, please?
Yeah. Thank you. So I think this conference was a great opportunity for all of us, and I think everybody is maybe inspired by something different. Just my takeaways from all the interesting discussions and speeches. When we think of preparedness, then raising awareness of emergency stuff is, I think, the right idea, but just one fruitful approach for our topic. The other means improving preparedness of disabled people to use their own resources to cope with disasters, and also to use existing support systems effectively. The second point I take is that communication is the core issue when we think of dealing with disaster situations. That means creating more effective communication channels for deaf people so that communication can start with them. Or on the other hand, it means to use existing communication strategies and skills between sighted and partially sighted or blind people. So to facilitate communication actually. And the third idea I personally take for me is this thinking of regular, normal, individual human needs which have to be fulfilled by different measures, different strategies, and sometimes maybe very special or uncommon strategies. I think we can look into the future in a very optimistic way, because referring to Tracy O'Sullivan's approach of collective engagement, this conference is an example for that. And I think we have many resources here to find interesting, new, good work, well-working solutions to overcome bad effects of disasters or trauma.
Okay, thank you, Svenja. Now Lars could add his comment.
Sure. First, I would like to tell you about my personal experience throughout this workshop. Actually, before I entered the workshop, I was maybe a bit skeptical about the outcome of it, because I've seen many times before other projects within Europe where only experts gathered without actually involving the user group. So they were actually on our behalf deciding and delivering results which we not necessarily agreed to. But at this workshop I actually see, and I am very positively surprised that both yesterday and today we have actually been involved, and the goal for me looks like we are on the right path. Yesterday we had this quote that nothing about us without us. And that, I think, is very crucial for within this project to remember concerning both deaf and hearing people. So I would really encourage everyone here and visual impaired to work more in the aspects of involving consumers here. I can see at this workshop we have almost only 3 delegates with hearing impairments and 2 with visual impairments, but I would like to encourage the group here to involve even more consumers when you work on these aspects. So today we also discussed the importance of how to work on the future. And then I would just like to say I'm 32 myself, and hopefully I can live 50 years more from now, I hope. And within that time, I hope we'll find solutions to how to handle catastrophes or other serious situations concerning deaf people. I'm sure that in the future there'll be other solutions because of this project, but there's still a long way to go. And maybe within 50, 60, 70 years, there will still be deaf people. So I hope for solutions in that field. And finally, I would like to say that within the AFN Handicap Convention, that it's very clear that we should not be viewed as handicapped people, but it's the surroundings that makes us handicapped because of lack. So I would just like to end up. And then just one small thing just came to me. We have this project concerning deaf on the one side and about visual impaired on the other side, and hearing impaired, of course. But I would also suggest that maybe you consider a third group within this project, which is deaf-blind people. Because today and tomorrow I heard nothing about that. So in the future you could consider to bring in that group as well. Okay.
Yeah, we would like to ask you now if you want to add something, maybe something what is important to say at the end, what you want to give us on the way for the next year, what should be, what we should think about, whatever is important for you. No statements? Yeah? Okay.
Yes, exactly like was said. Deaf-blind is very important. And also the deaf-blind is a very, very small group, mind you. However, in Germany, let's see, about in 1993, 94 or so, there was a rather large protest in Berlin, and we were talking about the UN Declaration. Yes, the Convention, thank you, of Human Rights. And we noticed that it was signed, it was wonderful, but you know, there's a gap still between the groups. Not knowing exactly how many of the deaf there, but we came and it was in October of this year, 3 weeks ago it was. About 3 weeks ago, there's 200 deaf-blind. 200 also did a protest. And it was the first deaf-blind protest in Germany ever. And it was rather small, mind you. But the television media did not communicate this protest to the rest of the country, so no one knew. It was just kind of closed off. It was because it was only 200 people. Who cares, right? So it is a minority that is a minority that is really not thought of. So if we had a deaf-blind person here, that would be wonderful.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, now it's time to close it. So I will close the workshop and Robert will speak after me about the future. So thank you very much for your hard work here. So I think it's one of the most productive workshops what I saw in my life. So thank you very much. Special thanks to Simona and Hedvika for organization before. It was lots of fun. Special thanks to our students for helping us here.
Yeah.
And thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Stepan.
So,
okay. Yes, thank you, Stepan, for organizing this wonderful conference, and also thank you to Martin Puccina, the Minister of Interior, and Martin Linhardt for supporting this. And I thank, of course, all the participants and the partners of this project, and also those who came a long way here to this and supported us from the start. Let me have 2 minutes to try to recall what we have done and what the objective of the project is. What we have done in a situation 1 year ago is actually with no contact and personal experience having with people with sensory impairments thinking about this project and putting it on the way, because we think in terms of special groups and needs, this is a very important idea. What happened in the European Commission is that there have been around 40-50 applicants for this grant, and it was the situation that about 12 have been funded, and you always have to imagine that out of these 12, 11 of the projects are actually focused on technical approaches. That means, how do we detect earthquakes better and earlier? How do we detect tsunamis better and earlier? What do we do with the floods? And what do we do with communities and cities in case of disasters, only in a technical way of thinking? We have the chance to put on the psychosocial, because it's like that 1/10 of these grants go to the psychosocial part. This has not ever been like this. It has been maybe first like the last 10 years like this. And this is also, I want to remind on that we have the topic of psychosocial support and interaction in terms of response on traumatic stress. And if we don't do it, there is nobody left. And this should remind us that in terms of the projects, we had an excellent expert input in Israel who have been practically experienced in this field. And that for all of us, the group here, the local workshop was the first contact to these groups of impairments. And it was the first time that we tried to network with these and put them in the community of psychotraumatology. And I think we saw the nice results of the local workshops. And I think also we saw that from the perspective of general psychological research, the studies on the sensory impairment and psychotraumatology actually is on the way. So how do we want to focus in the future these inputs? Our idea is to formulate the European Commission ideas and recommendations how to combine the models within psychotraumatology together with the knowledge and special needs of people with impairments. And the models we can contribute are resilient models, the risk factor models, the time course models, the stress response model, and we have to ask the questions, how do these models react and interact with these special target groups like we did before, for example, with children. And what is the outcome? The outcome is that besides technical knowledge, you know, how is the best construction after floods? How are we able to give to 1 million people food within 1 week? That we are able to supply the European Commission with a task force of experts who are the experts in this field of this very special type of problem. And what we want to do is that we have these pilot trainings next year to give an impression, what do we want to teach about this very special problem. And these two issues combined is, as far as we hope, the output, one of the main outputs of this initiative. And all the comments made on technical things, other target groups, they are very worthwhile. But in the beginning of the project, we try to be disciplined because we think it's a very big and difficult task even to focus on one group and solve this problem I just described. So I'm very happy that you have been here and are here in Prague, and I thank you very, very much for all these contributions. And the next step will be that, of course, we in our group try to focus more on these combinations, psychotraumatology and knowledge on special needs, so we can go ahead with the local task force, with the international task force, and with the value for the European Commission, and with the value of the idea of the UN Convention of Rights and inclusion and that way of understanding. Thank you very much.
Just one thing at the end, please. Please save the date for the next conference in our EUNAD project. It will be next year on the 29th and 30th of September 2014. And so we hope that we will present the results, what we have done the month until the next conference, and we will summarize our results there and discuss in, I hope, a lot of you also in this group. So, thank you, but please save the date.
Thank you. And technical part, questionnaires please give to students, if you have some, and boarding passes too, if you have free for us. Don't forget it. And now we will have some meeting of our group, of EUNAD group, just here. We have to leave the room in 15:30 because of Mr. Police President will have some celebration in this space. So they have to change tables, etc. So please be aware about it, or it's your business if you will continue celebration with Police President. But we will leave at 15:30 from here. So thank you very much again.